Portal 7748. If you have questions about life, or if you feel stuck in life, unable to move forward, and are seeking answers, then Portal 7748 might be an interesting topic. Portal 7748 is the portal between two dimensions, the seventh dimension and the eighth dimension. Let's start with the eighth dimension. What is the eighth dimension? When you enter life as a soul, as a mind, as a spirit, there is a fundamental question. What have you come to do? And you can also compare that, the eighth dimension I mean, to the portal in Series A. You are a divine spark and you want to experience something. Then, as a divine being, you pass through the eighth dimension or Series A to make that decision. What do you want to experience as a free soul? And more specifically, in which galaxy do you want to experience that? For every galaxy has its cosmic laws, and those cosmic laws are your matrix, your framework within which you can experience that. There, that eighth dimension is also the dimension of all possibilities. No limitations are imposed on you there. You decide what you want to do, and by that we mean again in that part of the universe, in that galaxy. That is then your framework based on free will. The seventh dimension, on the other hand, is when you, as a spark, have decided what you want to experience within which framework. That experiential framework must naturally be coordinated with other people, other beings, other sparks who want to have a similar experience and want to share it with you, thus coordinating in the same life in the same dimension. That same dimension, that coordinated seventh dimension, is, as an example, our solar system. A solar system is an environment, a matrix in which your own journey is coordinated in that seventh dimension regarding what you want to experience. This happens similarly on Series B. First, eighth dimension for Series A, and now we choose the Series B coordination. So, Portal 7748 is such a portal of reflection. What do I want to experience? There is a beginning and an end in every experience. So, where is the beginning? Where is the end? Coordinating experience presupposes making agreements with one another. An agreement requires an I and an identity. We call a coordinated field with many selves a matrix. Do I want to experience an illness? Do I want to experience a problem? Do I want to experience a challenge, a journey? That is all just one of many options and is not mandatory. An experience usually involves two or more people that requires coordination. So, communication, conversation, co-creation here with Portal 7748 is this communication. Once you have reviewed these options and made a decision, you descend further from the general to the specific, from options to choose from to agreements and coordination. Then you incarnate, and this coordination can be happening on a planet. To be able to experience, and specifically on Earth, it is necessary that you assume a human identity, an I, an ego, because that ego is necessary, for instance, for Gaia or the Earth in the seventh dimension, who has forged a framework into which you then can fit. And that must be coordinated from the seventh dimension. And the result is the coordination itself. The matrix is the five-dimensional framework, and there you experience your problem, your journey, your illness, your challenge, your freedom, your quest, your life, within a beginning and an end. Because an I, an ego, a self, a coordinated matrix, needs a beginning and an end. For otherwise you cannot coordinate. A beginning and an end in time, in space. So the fifth dimensional matrix, there and then you descend further. When you consider that to be coordinated, then we will make a leap. How do you want to experience all this? I give, for instance, here an example of a frog. You can live from the perspective of a frog in the water, living low on the land and view things from the bottom up. That is the third dimension. To give a simple example, it is possible that you live in a puddle, in a pond, in a pool, and then you wake up the next day and notice that the pool is gone. The water is dried up or something like that. That is then the challenge. But that challenge is coming to you, even though you have it in, you have chosen it in the seventh, the eighth, and even in the fifth dimension together, and quite decisively as a soul from. When it is meant for you that this challenge is to be thrown at you, we call that the third dimension, where we then have to look for answers outside of ourselves, outside the matrix of the third dimension for a solution. Another option is that when you are, for example, an eagle, and that eagle flies high above the land, above the earth, and it does not have the problem, because that eagle has seen where the water went, can follow the water if necessary, and is not faced with the challenge of the frog, the three-dimensional problem. he has bigger freedom and potentially greater options. The eagle, opposed to the frog, is situated in a fifth dimensional space-time and has more options and possibilities within his self. He can fly from one space to another to seek water if necessary, which the frog cannot do. At least the frog has less freedom. Thus, the third dimension could be explained briefly in a shortened form. The fifth dimension can be explained in an abbreviated form, whereby with the third dimension you place yourself within a narrow framework with an I. The fifth dimension is also an ego matrix, but a much freer one. Those choices that were made between series A and B. So here we arrive back at portal 7748, where you can of course communicate and meet with that portal from the fifth dimension, preferable in the same dimension, and even better from the seventh dimension. There, in that portal, you can ask yourself, what options do I have? Which options can I change? Because the frog cannot do that. Within the experience of the frog, you have to wait for its end before you can choose again the end of the coordination period. The eagle cannot change it either, because it also has to wait for its end. But in and with portal 7748, you can negotiate. Matrix changes occur in the right dimension, thus in the correct perspective beyond an I, beyond identification, so to say. You can say, wait a minute, I'm going to adjust my options and I want a different experience. And doing that is fine. So, in 7748 you can renegotiate everything that happens below that dimension. But there is an even better option. Connecting with 7748, you can make yourself a volunteer of that 7748. Identify with it, or you can step into a coordinating, into a co-creation with that portal, and then you become a coordinator. Then you are a channel. Then you are an assistant of the portal. And from these dimensions and these perspectives, you can guide everyone. But of course, that coordination function is not being managed by you, because there is no you, there is no I, there is no I needed there. Your task is to coordinate in service. That does not mean that you experience something from your ego, from your identification perspective, but you do not master it. No, you do not manage it. There you are allowed to switch, to move into a higher dimension, because a dimension is not a fixed thought pattern. A dimension is a workplace. It is an agreement. You have options to change that agreement, to adjust it within your own choices, that is, beyond the self, because the self is the result of the choice. And you can do that here and now, in this human life today. If you choose to do that, if you choose to do that exercise, when you make that decision to cooperate, collaborate with 7748, but again from within 7748. You are welcome.